Right, Jon Molloy, good morning to you.
Hi, gents. How you doing?
That's pretty high praise. Best golfer in the game at the moment. Competition is pretty stark at the top.
Yeah, he is phenomenal. I mean, he's been earmarked for a while, to be fair. He can kind of do everything, Ger, and he can win on every kind of golf course. You know, some players, there's horses for courses, whereas Rahm wins on links, as we know. Paul mentioned Lahinch there. He can win on parkland courses where you have to just turn off your brain and bomb it. He can win on strategic courses. There's no real weakness to his game. He changed his equipment at the start of this year, and his short game went to pot, couldn't really hold a putt. His chipping wasn't very good. That often happens, they say, especially when you change ball. But at his most recent event, he seemed to be back and clicking again. So you have to assume someone that good, it's more than a flash in the pan. So the fact that it's at Torrey Pines, where I don't think he's finished outside of the top five. He won it in 2017, loves the place. All of those ingredients just sort of add up into very hard to back against him. Even though, by the way, it was so cynical the way they told him he had COVID. Did you see that a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, he seems to have taken it quite well.
Yeah.
Why do you say cynical? What did you think was cynical about it?
Well, it was on the Saturday where he had shot a 64, and I think Shane Lowry came off the course saying, if he shot a 64 out there, that's the best round of golf I've ever been connected to, because there's not a 64 out there. You know, it was phenomenal. But they told him as he's walking off the 18th green, like all the cameras there, I just think it was to get eyeballs. I think they were hoping the video would go viral. It wasn't a case of, John, can we have a word with you in the scoring tender in privacy? It was, John, you've got COVID. Here's your medical information, the world to see it. I mean, you think of Irish rugby players, they reserve the right sometimes to even acknowledge publicly they have COVID, which is fair enough. You know, I don't really have an issue with that. Not everyone wants to broadcast to the world they have COVID. Jon Rahm may have wanted to tell the world he had a back strain, but I mean, 18th green, they have like Rahm collapsing when he gets the news, you know. The only reason they were doing it was because they wanted that moment of Jon Rahm going, oh no, and collapsing and all that kind of stuff. So it just shows like even you know, boring golf kind of still wants those eyeballs and that viral moment. So I don't know if you were at work and they decided to tell you you'd had a positive
burst in the door now.
In front of the whole office or something. Ger, you're positive, you know. So I just thought it was a bizarre way to tell someone they had what, you know, still is kind of serious condition in certain instances. But after initially collapsing, he took it well and understood the situation. So look, he's top. And look, not everyone who wins a major does win a major, who should win a major. But you really have to think with Rahm. A lot of ducks in a row this week.
Does that put him at like the top of that list now when it comes to publicity and promotion, that he's going to be the money winner of this brand new league, Jon Rahm?
The Player Impact Programme?
Correct.
No, I don't think so. Right. You know, he might do well to be, I think it's only 10 players who get some of that pot. I heard you talking to Nathan about it yesterday. This programme, for anyone missed it, the PGA have launched this year, about 40 million split up, and it's measured on various metrics from Google searches to Twitter likes to retweets, you name it, it's all there. And so, you know, Tiger would ordinarily win it any year. Brooks and Bryson doing their best right now. Rory will be there. I don't know if Rahm will be in the top 10, funny enough. Like, would you be that interested in Jon Rahm?
Well, just after they made a show of him, giving him his COVID test, I was like, at least he gets high on the PIP.
It's true. He might nick a measly couple of million for his trouble, yeah.
He needs to win this week and next week to fully get the benefit of that. I'm just thinking here, though, that's the easiest thing in the world to cheat. Like, hire a click farm and, like, just have any old crap spewed out about you, a few Russian bots, a click farm in somewhere in Asia, and away you go. No?
Yeah, no, I guess.
Maybe we could set up a sideline here. We could take a cut.
I know the Bryson Brooks thing, which people are kind of sick of talking about. I think myself included increasingly. I know there is a sense that they're now monetizing this. And there's no doubt, like, initially this was very real, and this went back to like 2019. Like, they've been at each other. Initially it started over slow play. That's kind of the genesis of this whole thing, that Bryson takes forever talking about all sorts of scientific things over his shot. And Brooks, this is just the antithesis of everything Brooks wants to see in golf. You know, Brooks, like, Jock, just hit the damn ball. That's Brooks's attitude. But there is no doubt that they have both, or people around them, realize they can monetize this a bit. I guess it's human nature. They can't but be aware that every time this flares up now, they get the most likes of anything they ever put out in social media. You know, that the world is kind of hungry for this. So they're definitely monetizing what was originally, I think, a genuine beef. I don't think the rest of the players are that bothered by it genuinely. I think, you know, Nathan was even giving that example of Troy Merritt yesterday winning £1 million for some silly made-up season-long event, and he didn't even realize he was in it. Like, there's all of these little incentives all over the place. I mean, 40 million spread across 10 players. I think a lot of them are like, whatever.
I think it's interesting though, because if you go back to when Anna Kournikova broke into and crossed over into mainstream fame, a lot of people were like, oh, she's going to be richer from not playing tennis than playing tennis, and that's a key moment in athletes understanding that they don't have to be successful to be rich, that there's another way to do it. And I just wonder if golf is in a bit of a tricky spot where the tournaments become less important than some of the other stuff, and you need the other stuff to get the casual viewers, to make sure that your TV deals are so big that you can afford to have these made-up £1 million competitions. But at the same time, you really need the singular aim of the best players has to always be to win these tournaments. And maybe that doesn't change, I don't know, but it's just an interesting tension point coming.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I genuinely think the tournaments and winning the majors and places in history for all the top guys, and even for the next cohort who just want to win a major, I still think that trumps everything. And they're already making so much more money off the course than they are on the course. Certainly the very top guys. McIlroy signed, what, a $200 million deal with Nike a couple of years ago. Woods is a billionaire. That's not from his on-course earnings. So there's so much money, corporate money, sloshing around the game already, and there has been for a long time. I mean, you read Rich Beam's book from, I don't know what that is now, maybe 15, 20 years ago, and just all the corporate money sloshing around. It's been there for a long time. Funny, like this player impact program, I don't think if Bryson and Brooks were doing their thing, it would even be mentioned. It's not, I mean, for you and I, it would be life-changing, but really, it's not that much money in their world. I mean, a trip for Dustin Johnson to Saudi Arabia once a year probably does net him something similar to what he might hope to make out of this player impact program. It is only like, 40 million quid spread across 10 players. So I think, you know, you're like, oh, well, a few million, I'll take it. But I don't know if, like, it's weird with Koepka. Oh, he's building his brand. What's his brand? Like, being a bully? You know, it's a weird one.
Well, his brand started out with those long-form interviews where he's like, I'm not really that into golf, I don't really like it. That was kind of the first time. But that seemed a little kind of, people don't pay enough attention to me, even though I'm the best player at the moment. There was definitely a bang of like, why am I not getting any attention here? And he's getting it now. Yeah.
And just to know if it's the right kind of attention. That was definitely his big chip on his shoulder, for sure. And he remembers things like turning up to defend his US Open title. He's won 2 of them. And, you know, there's billboards everywhere. And I think the billboard was, you know, the usual suspects, Rory and Mickelson or whatever. And there was no real Koepka billboard, even though he was the defending champion. Or the Fox TV ads in the build-up to the US Open had all the usual suspects, but in the ads didn't have Koepka. All of these things land with him and stick in his craw. And so he really felt marginalized for a long time. But then it's weird because you see him interviewed all the time now, and it's like he has such disdain for the whole process and a sense of, why do I have to be interviewed? He's a kind of, look, I do like him. I don't like the way he's behaving at the moment, especially, but he is something different in golf, which is full of quote unquote great guys, you know?
His brand, I would say, Joe, is the frat guy, young frat boy in the United States who likes to play beer pong and has a Barstool Sports flag hanging up in their college dorm and admires this guy because he thinks that science is stupid. And Bryson is a nerd, and those guys would have like shoved a guy like Bryson into a locker at school or flushed his head down the toilet, whereas Brooks is a jock, and Brooks is one of us, and that is the target market for golf fans in the United States of America, whether golf likes it or not.
Yeah, that could be very true. God, that's a depressing thought.
He's going to get rich off the back of that target market because there's a lot of those people around.
Yeah. I mean, I'm interested to see where it all goes. I presume it will cool down a touch because I think everybody sort of agreed that the escalation of bringing the fans, inviting the fans to say stuff to Bryson DeChambeau during competition is crossing a line. So like Paul McGinley was saying on Golf Weekly, he's had conversations with Keith Pelly, the European Tour CEO, about this. You know, Paul McGinley's obviously on the European Tour board as well, that this is something they have to kind of stop at source if anything like this kind of kicks off. It'll be interesting this week to see if there's any repercussions if fans start saying stuff to DeChambeau. I don't think the West Coast crowd are generally as raucous as East Coast, but, you know, few beers, gets into evening time. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a great tournament. I'm really looking forward to it. There's something where I think all the ingredients adding up for Rahm means I write off Rahm. No one ever wins when they're that much of a favourite. So a lot of players are coming into form at the moment. So I think this Brooks DeChambeau thing it's such a like talking point now. And I think today's Thursday. By Friday, thankfully, one of them will be out of the tournament and it'll just kind of drift away. Because I noticed on Golf Weekly the last week or two, our subscribers are getting in touch saying, can you stop talking about this? It's so boring.
Fair
you know?
Yeah, look, it's true. But at the same time, it's kind of grimly fascinating to see exactly what happens.
Sure, yeah. No, it is.
The sporting gods tend to throw them together on day 3 or maybe day 4 where it doesn't really matter, and all of a sudden we're interested to see what happens, like with the 3rd or 4th pairing out in the final day, and it's like completely irrelevant in those terms. We've got this far on a major preview without mentioning Rory, which is, I would say, unique. Certainly in my experience, since Rory McIlroy has become somebody who contends in majors. Is that a good thing in a weird way? Is that maybe the opposite of everything we've done for the last while, that we can talk ourselves into this, he's under the radar?
Yeah, I mean, we've tried everything, haven't we? So now it's like, the expectation's really low, therefore he's actually going to win. So we can hit the expectation button right before he starts. John Duggan was on with you there beforehand and said he's not sure what to expect. I think that's probably the consensus. I mean, so you have Rahm ahead of him in the betting, and for all those reasons, he's a significant favourite. Dustin Johnson is next in the betting at 14-1. He's coming back into form. DeChambeau is at 14-1. These Poana greens, he doesn't love them. They have different types of grass growing together, so the grass grows at different speeds. The net result being they get very bumpy, these greens. These greens on the West Coast can get inside your head. Some players hate them. So DeChambeau doesn't love them. They're an acquired taste, although he said, I'm doing what I did at Winged Foot. I'm bombing it and I'm gouging out of the rough. That's my strategy. Worked last time, so who's going to write him off at 14-1? There's then a bunch, and Rory's one of these on kind of 16s. So Xander, local boy, he was thereabouts in the Masters, you remember. Gave it up against Matsuyama. There's Morikawa, who won his first major last year and has now established himself in the top 10. There's Koepka also at 16-1, and there's Spieth at 16-1, and there's Rory at 16-1. So it's got like, it's a good tournament because a lot of these guys kind of, there's a case for a lot of them now, and including McIlroy, because he won a couple of weeks ago. Basically, he won a couple of weeks ago. He turned up at Kiowa and had a terrible first round, and he's had terrible first rounds at majors for far too long now. He himself in his press conference yesterday even admitted, yeah, look, he didn't use the pressure word, but he did say, there's no doubt it's a bit easier to freewheel it after I bomb myself out of the tournament, basically, in the first 3 rounds. I need to bring the freedom I have on the driving range to majors. So that's been McIlroy's issue of late. First rounds, he's out of the tournament. He's still working with Pete Cowan. He's working on a fade with the driver, which is kind of new. You would hope they're improving the wedges. He's working with Bob Rotella in a big way now, and mentioned him after winning at Quail Hollow a few weeks back. So you're hoping mentally he's feeling better. I mean, Jer, we've watched him over a decade, and he'll say different things coming into majors. So the word this week, and I have heard him say this at various junctures before, is I'm going to freewheel it. You know, I'm not going to worry too much about the net result. I'm just going to hit it and not worry about it. And like, the reality is, as we know, in anything that you care about, you can tell yourself, I don't mind, you know, I'm just gonna freewheel it. But your brain knows that you care massively, and therefore the tension is still there. So that's just something that he's grappling with at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting whatever happens. Joe, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Okay, fellas. See ya. Bye-bye.